Hi everyone and welcome to my channel. Today I'm back with 4 all new Christmas decor DIYs. As usual, each project is really easy to create. I hope that you enjoyed today's video. If you do, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. Now let's go ahead and get started. For the first DIY today, I'm going to be using one of these unfinished wood frames, and this is from Hobby Lobby from the Woodpile brand. The first thing I'm doing is taking my folk art wood tint in the color walnut, and I'm just staining the outside of the frame and then also the back side of this piece as well so that it looks nice and finished. Then for the inside, I'm painting that with my Waverly paint in the color ivory. Then after that paint is dry, I'm using my espresso colored chalk paint on a chip brush and just very lightly dry brushing this color on top of the ivory to give it more of a distressed look. I'm also going to be using 9 of these little reindeer heads that I picked up from Hobby Lobby this year, but I did want to remove all of the little red pom-poms that they had for their noses, so I just scraped them off. They were really easy to remove. I did that on all 9 of them. Instead of those pom-poms, I'm going to be using 9 of these little wooden caps that I also picked up from Hobby Lobby, and I'm just going to be hot gluing those right on the reindeer's nose where the pom-poms originally were. Then I'm going to be painting the wooden caps. On 8 of them, I'm going to be painting them with my rich black chalk paint from Folk Art. And then on the 9th cap, on the last reindeer, I'm going to be painting that with my Imperial color chalk paint from Folk Art. Next, I'm placing the reindeer heads on the frame, just getting them spaced exactly where I want them to be. I am spacing them to where I can have writing underneath each one of the heads, and I am putting the one with the red nose in the center of the frame. Once I have them all spaced out, I am using some hot glue on the back side of each head to get them attached. For underneath all of the reindeer heads, I am doing all 9 of Santa's reindeer's names, and I did cut them out on my Cricut. I will have a link to them if you guys are interested in the cut files. If you don't have a Cricut, you can always use stickers or just hand write them. Here I'm just getting each one centered and transferred right underneath each head. And that was it for this project. This is what it looks like all finished. I think it turned out so cute and it was so easy to do. And like I said, if you don't have a Cricut, you can always just handwrite these or use stickers to create the same look. Now for DIY number 2. For this one, I'm going to be using this sign that I got on clearance at Hobby Lobby. And then I first started by painting the back of it with a red color, and then it just was not turning out and I made a mess of it, as you can see here. So what I did was just remove the back side of the sign and I flipped it over so that I could still use the frame of the sign and not have it like completely ruined. So here I'm just painting the other side of the sign with my Waverly chalk paint in the color ivory. Then for the frame, I'm painting that with my Folk Art paint in the color Imperial. And what was great about having the frame actually removed is it was way easier to paint. And then once the paint was all dry, I then used some hot glue around the inside edges to attach the backing back around the frame. I'm then using these unfinished wood letters from Hobby Lobby to spell out the words gingerbread and cafe. And instead of having to paint all of the letters with black paint, I thought it would be way easier to use a black marker. So here I'm just using my black Sharpie to color in all of the fronts of the letters. So if you have a black paint pen or a Sharpie, this is way easier than painting each letter. Another piece I'm going to be using in this project is this mini unfinished wood cutting board, and this came from a Christmas craft kit from the Target dollar spot that I picked up this year. I first painted it with an ivory colored paint and then decided to change it. So here I'm just painting over that ivory color with an olive green colored paint, and then once that paint was dry, I wanted to make the edges pop a little bit, so I use the ivory colored paint to just go around all of the edges and give it a little bit of distressing. Now that I have everything all painted, I'm just placing all of my letters exactly where I want them to be before I start attaching them. To attach them, I'm just using a little bit of hot glue on the back side of each letter. I then did the same thing with the cutting board and the word cafe. I did the cutting board right in the center of the sign and then the words cafe right underneath the cutting board. I'm also going to be using 5 of these little wooden gingerbread men that I picked up from Hobby Lobby. I just thought they were so cute. And I'm using 3 of them with a green bow tie and then 2 with a red bow tie. The one with the green bow tie I'm placing in the center of my cutting board, and then I'm doing the ones with the red bow tie on each side of the one in the center, and then the 2 last green bow ties I'm doing on the outside, like you can see me placing them here. Then to add just a little bit of detail, I'm using some of this pine greenery. I'm cutting 2 really small pieces off of these stems, and then I'm just going to be hot gluing them at the very top of the cutting board right above the gingerbread man. And then I'm doing a really simple bow with a piece of jute, and then I'm going to be hot gluing that right in the center of those 2 greenery pieces that I've added. Here is the sign all finished. I'm so in love with how this one turned out. Again, another really easy project, and I'm so excited to display it in my kitchen this Christmas season. Next is DIY number 3. For this one, I'm using one of these unfinished wood palette signs from Michaels. And the first thing I'm doing is staining the entire piece with my folk art wood tint in the color Walnut. I just painted on the stain to really get in the grooves of the wood, and then once I had a good amount on, then I would just wipe away the excess with an old rag. Another piece I'll be using for this project is this unfinished wood deer head that I picked up from Hobby Lobby, and I'm painting the entire head with my Waverly paint in the color Ivory. Then once the ivory color was all dry, I wanted to add a little bit of distressing, and I used my espresso colored chalk paint, and I took a small brush and went around all of the edges of the deer first, and then I used that same espresso color on a larger chip brush to go over the front of the deer, and I did it in vertical motions to keep all of my brush strokes going the same direction, and I just really like the look of the distressing on the deer head. I'll be using some of these pine greenery pieces that came off of a Christmas stem from Hobby Lobby, and I'm using some hot glue to attach them around the deer's neck to kind of resemble what would look like a wreath around the deer's neck. When attaching these pieces, I did overlap them underneath a little bit so that it was seamless and you couldn't see any gaps in between the greenery. And once I had this first layer on, I wanted to add a second layer of different colored greenery to kind of just make it pop a little bit more. So I'm using some of these that I had in my craft stash that look like they have a little bit of snow on the tips of them. And then I just added those with the same hot glue right over top of the other greenery that I've already added. Next, I'm using this red ribbon to create a bow. I wrapped it around my 3 fingers twice, and then I'm taking the end and pushing it through the bottom fingers and then pulling that end piece up and over my fingers, and then there's a little loop at the bottom. I'm just taking that top piece and putting it through the bottom loop and then back up again and pulling it tight to create my bow. I hope that makes sense. It is really hard to explain how to make a bow, and please don't mind all of the paint on my fingers. So once I have my bow created, I'm then just going to be using my scissors to cut the ends of the bow in a diagonal. Next, I'm using some hot glue to attach the bow right in the center of the greenery on the neck, and then I'm using this little unfinished wood button, and I'm attaching that right in the center of my bow. Next, I'm attaching the deer head to the center of the wood piece that I stained earlier, just using some hot glue on the back side of the deer head and then pressing it down. This is what it looks like all finished. This one, again, another really easy project, and it looks so rustic. It goes perfect with my rustic Christmas decor that I'm using this year. Now for the 4th and final DIY today, I'm going to be using this sign that I picked up from Hobby Lobby when it was on clearance for $2.49. I'm first going to start by painting the inside of the sign with my Waverly chalk paint in the color Ivory. Then I'm painting the entire outside frame portion of this sign with my Imperial color chalk paint. I'm using this unfinished wood mug that came from a Christmas craft pack this year from the Target Dollar Spot, and I'm painting this with that same Imperial color chalk paint. And then I'm also going to be using this unfinished wood candy cane. This came from that same craft kit, and I'm just going to be painting it like a candy cane. I did the ivory color and then the imperial to paint the candy cane. And then another little piece that I'm going to be using is one of these unfinished wooden snowflakes from Dollar Tree, and I'm painting this with the ivory colored paint. I did create this old-fashioned hot cocoa decal on my Cricut, and I will have a link to it if you guys are interested in the cut file. If you don't have a Cricut, again, you can either handwrite this or you can use stickers to create a same look. I'm just getting it all centered and transferred at the very top of my sign. And once I have this piece on, I'm then going to be hot gluing the candy cane on the very back of the mug, like you can see me doing here. And then I'm going to be hot gluing the mug underneath the hot cocoa words right in the center of the sign. I'm also going to be using this Have a Cup of Cheer decal that I also created on my Cricut, and we'll have a link to this one in my description box as well. And for this one, I'm just getting it centered and transferred right underneath the mug. And then the very last step, I'm just going to be using some hot glue to attach my snowflake right in the center of my mug. Here is the sign all finished, another really easy and simple project. I really hope that you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed, I hope that you will consider subscribing. Please be sure to hit the notification bell so that you don't miss out on any of my future videos. And as always, I would love to hear in the comments down below which project from today was your favorite. Thank you so much for watching.